Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Desk Drop. So this week I'm super pumped. We've got Carl Smith, partner at the Bridge Group, who's joining me today. Today we're going to be talking about building playbooks for inside sales teams, perhaps even sales and customer success teams as well, and how to adapt to the outbound world in a remote world. So, Carl, thanks for joining me, man. How you been?
Yeah, I've been great, all things considered. Thank you very much for having me, Alex.
Good stuff, mate. Pleasure to have you on. So, look, for those of you that don't know, tell us a bit more about what you do and what the Bridge Group's all about.
Yeah, I mean, at the highest level, the Bridge Group is a sales consulting firm. We're super niche in terms of the type of company that we work with. So we work with almost exclusively B2B tech companies. So anything that you hear me talk about, consider that lens being over it. And we help them with the way I like to message it is anything that a VP of sales or a CRO might care about is something that we would probably help them with. So super niche in terms of the profile of company we work with, but we do a lot of different things for those organizations.
Great, man. Awesome. So you're working with sales, outbound sales teams, actual sales team, customer success teams. From what I understand, there's a lot of playbooks being built. So as a sales leader myself, I've tried building playbooks in the past. What's the secret to getting them right, and how do you get people to actually adopt them and do the right things with them?
Yeah, I think I'll answer that in the two parts. The secret to getting it right, I think, is sucking up as much knowledge from the people who know your business as humanly possible. If you leave the playbook development in any one department or sub department's ownership, that's where you have subpar results. So I think you have to include all the groups that you just mentioned, include sales development, include sales, include customer success, include anyone in your organization who matches your buyer personas. Just soak up as much of that knowledge as possible and distill it into what will be your playbook. Don't say, hey, one person, go and just build this thing on your own on an island, which we've seen happen, because that's where you get something that doesn't reflect what you should actually have included in your playbook. But from an adoption standpoint, that same actually involvement is how you get it adopted, but specifically from whoever's going to use it. So if we're building a playbook for sales development reps, they better be part of the development of the playbook, because if they don't feel ownership of it through their involvement in its development and you try and force it on them, that's where you have that resistance. Like, you're just giving me more work to do. I don't want homework. I don't want another book to read. I want you to help me. And by making them involved in the process and give them ownership over it is how typically we get the best adoption.
Nice. So adoption's actually around getting them involved in the creation, it sounds like.
Absolutely. Yeah. Make them feel ownership of it. This isn't the Bridge Group's playbook that we're giving to you SDRs at XYZ company, or it's not us, the management team, sitting in a boardroom developing this playbook and, passing it down to the underlings and making them execute on it. No. It's a collaborative experience where we are valuing your experience, having these daily conversations with prospects, getting kicked in the teeth and hung up on every day. Like, we know how valuable it is to hear what you have to say. This is your playbook too. I want your fingerprints all over this thing, so that you're going to ultimately use it and care about how it gets updated. I want you to really
Mm.
care about it, because if so, then you're going to adopt it and you're going to influence your peers to use it as well.
Love that. And look, one of the books that influenced a lot of how I built an outbound team is Trish Bertuzzi's The Sales Development Playbook, right? So
Yeah.
you must get a lot of good stuff from there. I remember the five whys, right? A lot of sales teams start with the why you, why listen, why care. Sorry, why you, why now, why change, right? But those
Yeah.
two bits before the why listen, why care, and
Yeah.
how you get someone from being busy to curious, curious to interested, pure gold. So anyone listening who hasn't read that, definitely go and take a look at it,
Spent a
because
year of my
it's
life in the in the editing and content review for Trish. So yeah, it's definitely worthwhile. Well, she put a lot of thought into it for reasons, because she wanted it to be practical and usable by anyone who runs a sales team or cares about sales development. So it's
yeah,
always good to hear that people love it.
very cool, man. Very cool. Okay, great. Well, look, tying into that, right? The playbooks, a lot of them got ripped up probably 6 months ago, and things have changed a lot, right? Particularly given where the world's at right now. Um, what do you think? What do you feel's really changed the most? Let's just focus on SDRs and outbound sales.
Yeah.
It's changed the most for that you've seen.
I would start with something super tactical. So, what I think has changed the most in terms of outbound right now in this post-COVID era is the ability to get people on the phone. right? Connect rate has dropped off of a cliff, mostly because people aren't in the office and not everyone has been great about forwarding their desk phone to their cell phone, as you would imagine. So we're just getting less connects, which is leading to frustration with sales development reps, which is leading to them kind of going in a different direction than the cadence we might have originally intended. And so we're seeing drop-offs in cadence performance as a result, strictly because of just that phone element. There's a lot of messaging elements that we could talk about as well, but that phone piece is the one that comes top of mind.
So how are you helping your customers get around that? If fewer people are picking up the phone, what are the alternatives?
Yeah, so this is a tough one, right? Because with fear and uncertainty and true economic impact comes the reaction to kind of tighten up spending and not necessarily invest more or just protect your head count. But what we're urging people to do is, if maybe in the past you hadn't wanted to spend significant dollars on investing in really great data, and instead you were just like, yeah, the reps can figure it out, whatever, through research, work through phone trees, get referrals, however they got data in the past. What we're recommending is spend the dollars, and even if you have to, trade headcount for that data, because it's the only way you're going to get access to the people you need to be in front of. So there's a handful of really, really great data providers out there that will get you the contact information and more direct dial percentages, mobile numbers, stuff like that. And so you just kind of have to invest in that, as much as it might hurt, if you want to see the pipeline creation that you're looking for.
That's really interesting. I think a lot of companies are perhaps not quite clued up as to what the obstacles really are, perhaps what the realities really are. How do you have those conversations with, particularly with your clients, right? What's your message to people out there? Do we need to be a bit more realistic?
So when it comes to goal setting, I think there's really two camps in terms of actual quota attainment or goal setting, like people who did layoffs and people who didn't do layoffs. If you did layoffs, then everyone's territory expanded. And I think in that scenario, you can keep goals fairly consistent, because if before I had 100 accounts, maybe now I have 175 target accounts. Maybe I can get that same $1 million or whatever from the 175. But for those who didn't do layoffs, I think resetting expectations and realigning quotas is extremely important to make sure that you keep your team engaged and have the productivity of the whole group not drop off of a cliff. I think it's super important to, first and foremost, talk to the frontline people, the sales development reps we're talking about. What is stopping you from actually engaging with prospects? Get their perspective. Analyze that with what you're seeing in terms of the actual benchmarking data. So hopefully, if you've had your team around for a while, you have months and months and months of data that says how many calls lead to how many connects, lead to how many meetings, lead to how many opportunities, right? All in all, down the funnel. So compare post-COVID era metrics to whatever data set you have before. See how much has it really dropped off, and what dials can you potentially tweak to still get to the bottom number that you're still being held accountable for by your executive team, your board, whoever.
Love that, man. So it's, if you get the data, benchmark it, and then tweak it and see what's going on. I think everyone should be measuring as they go, because it's changing every month, I believe. Well, certainly we've seen that over here at ReachDesk, but that's great advice.
One other thing on the expectation setting front, I think it's really important to understand what's actually happening on the phone. So if you're disconnected from customer conversations, like if you're a VP of sales or whatever, any executive, then if you have call recordings, listen to them. If you don't, join calls, like get access to customer conversations any way that you can and actually hear what they're saying, right? We have all these assumptions about how people are handling COVID, working remotely, the economic stress and complexities that have been put on companies. But if you don't hear what your customers are saying, then you can't instruct your reps as to how they should be messaging appropriately. Like you said, the playbook's been ripped up. We need to rewrite it. And if we don't know what the prospects care about now and the things that they're expressing now, then we can't help set our reps' expectations in terms of how they should be messaging.
Yeah, mate, it's so interesting. 2 months ago, we invested in Gong, right? So we can listen to these conversations. Beforehand, I was on the sales floor listening in, do sort of
Don't you miss that?
showcases. I miss it so much. But it almost feels like we're back on the sales floor, right? Because now I can dial into those things, search for things. Someone mentioning X, Y, and Z, or they mentioning pricing, is it a competitor, whatever it is. But being able to listen, not everyone has that, right? So just hop on calls. right? Just get on calls with people and get listening in. It's such simple advice, and perhaps leaders always think that they already know everything, and perhaps there's maybe a bit too much trust sometimes. But that insight is gold.
Yeah.
Great. So look, we've spoken about conversations a lot, phone calls, and email a little bit. What other channels or methods are you recommending using right now? How are you helping your customers win?
Yeah, in particular, I'm looking at two things. One, coincidentally, direct mail, right? What's another way that we can get access to people? There's some complexity
Yeah.
there in terms of needing to, we're not necessarily going to have a home address. So you need to think through how you're actually going to get access to people because they're not in the office. Less competitive places to play really is what I'm looking for. So if I was going to summarize it, the channels that I'm looking at are where do we have less competitive places to play? Direct mail or a mail, physical mail in box is one of those places. The other place is either some version of text, whether it's SMS or like WhatsApp internationally or whatever it is. It's huge in B2C already. In the US, we have election season coming up, and I'm sure everyone is starting to realize like what some of that text automation technology looks like, because like you're getting blown up by people who have invested in it from political candidates. And so I'm starting to think about how can we start to adopt that in a more meaningful way in a B2B sense, and not in a one-to-many type communication, but in a one-to-one with a sales development rep. How do we use text at the top of funnel to engage customers in a more meaningful way? I know we need to tiptoe into it because culturally it's not going to be accepted like right out of the gates, as it might be on the customer success side. But those are the two avenues that I'm looking at. I always want less competitive places to play. I don't want to compete with 300 emails in the inbox. I'll take voicemail at 15 a day, text with less than one a day, or mail with 0 per day average right now, probably, maybe 0.25. So less competitive places.
Right, and it's so interesting. We started testing with text message and WhatsApp as well, those two channels. I think there was a deal we closed last month, and when we were doing the knowledge share, which we do every week, we look at win reports. How did you close this deal? And one of my account executives said, I pretty much closed the deal over text message.
Yeah.
Last day of the month as well. So powerful. What do you think's holding people back from using that?
Fear. Yeah. Fear of two things. Fear of the unknown. I don't know how to message via text. I know how I message my friends, my colleagues, my family via text. I've never texted and I'm putting myself in the sales rep shoe. I've never texted in a B2B setting before. So I don't know what are the norms? Like, how do I message it? Do I structure it like an email? Do I structure it like a text to a friend? Where's the happy medium somewhere in between there? What language do I use? Do I say hi first name? Do I sign it off? What content do I include, right? Like there's all these questions. So I think it's fear of not knowing how to do it. And then the second fear would be fear of negative consequences. I send the text, the prospect texts back, how dare you text me? Don't ever text me again. Take me off your list. If you ever call me again, I'm going to call your VP of sales and make sure that you're fired, right? So I think it's those two fears. I don't know what to do. And I'm scared that if I do it, somebody's going to respond really negatively.
And how do you structure text then? I mean, if you're telling people to do it, do you just
is
there
the
a
first
format?
one. Yeah. So what I would say is, so for the middle of the funnel, what the scenario that you just outlined, one of your reps, basically closed the deal over text. So for all that middle of funnel activity, I think if you're already on a pre-scheduled discovery call, ask for permission. Say a lot of my prospects are running all over the place, right? Tee it up with like other people like that I do this. So my prospects are always on the go. They're running all over the place. Sometimes text is just easier to do coordination and do some back and forth logistics stuff. Does that work for you? Yes. Okay, great. Can I have your mobile number? Boom, away we go. And now I've opened up the channel. I've gained permission to use text as a channel, and then away you go. If they say no, then whatever, you have to stay away from it. Stinks, but I would still ask for permission in those scenarios. For the top of funnel, it's a little bit more difficult. I think you have to be really, really cautious of, first of all, there's laws and rules around how you can leverage text and who you can send it to, who you can't, the actual delivery method for sending it. But in those scenarios, what we've done is make sure you're still going to do hi first name. You have to tell them who you are because they don't have whatever number you're texting from, like whether you use an actual technology platform, if you actually use your phone. But tell them who you are. Remember to tell them who you are, because there's no email signature. There's none of that. And then keep it less than 15 words, fairly short and sweet. So just tell them what you're trying to communicate with them about and how they can get in contact with you. Be like, feel free to text me back or give me a call if it's easier.
That's so cool, man. That's awesome advice. I love the permission bit as well. Like, can I use this channel? But it's
Yeah.
like
And
middle, bottom of funnel.
I think normalizing it is the key. Like, tee it up by saying, like, other people like that I do this. Is it all right if I text you to coordinate some of the stuff as we go along?
Love that. That's powerful. That's very powerful. Cool. So gone through the calling, email, other channels, text is gold. One of the things that certainly I've noticed, and I've spoken to a lot of businesses, is when numbers are harder to hit, we try and hit more volume, right? And we forget about pulling the quality lever. How do you approach that? How do you get people to understand that the quality over quantity is perhaps a better solution? Is it the right solution?
Yeah. So specifically when it comes to actual outbound sales efforts, right? But frame it up with that. If we're talking about marketing efforts, I'm not a marketer, so it's not my area of expertise, so I'm not going to get into it. But when it comes to sales, when we try and ratchet the volume up too high, I think we become marketers. A, we don't have the skill sets. We can't write copy as well as they can. B, we have amazing technology. The sales engagement space is phenomenal. The outreaches, the sales lofts of the world have built amazing technology suites or platforms. But what we don't want to do is, again, turn sales development reps into email marketers. When we do, by increasing the volume up that high and doing pseudo personalization with just dynamic field mapping, what I think that does is kind of takes away the point of having a sales development rep. I can send one email with first name, company name, and industry or whatever placed into the email in different spots to 10,000 people with 4 clicks. I don't need a team of 15 SDRs sending those, by just sending the templates out at scale, right? And now all of a sudden I'm investing heavily in a sales development function who's acting like a junior email marketer. And so I think the personalization is the only validation for the job function outside of their actual phone skills, right? Back to the phone conversation we started with. So I think you have to personalize that balance. I've heard statistics like 20% personalization built into a template is kind of the sweet spot. I tend to agree with that. I think you can go up to 50. I think minimum 20%, which isn't first name, company name. Again, that's not personalization. It needs to be something relevant. But I think just saying it needs to be something relevant also isn't super helpful. But 20 to 50%, I think, is key. If you can still achieve somewhere over a bare minimum of 50 activities a day, unless you're super strategic, like selling ERP for $1.5 million per deal or something, and it might change.
Yeah, you only need one deal a year to make that quota, I think.
It's a different approach. But for most of us in SaaS, that's not the case.
And not quite the luxury of those kind of deal sizes for all of us. Brilliant. And it sounds like there's that diminishing returns if you try and hit too many people, then you're probably just not going to get the responses or even the opens, right? Because I always use the mobile phone test. You've probably got 6 or 7 words if you're checking on an Android or an iPhone to see what the first line of that email is, and if it's just generic and it stinks of marketing and you haven't opted in, then probably not even going to get it opened in the first place.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And but I think it's also what is not fair to do as a leadership team is just to say that. Like, I like to provide at least a dozen examples. Anytime we do trainings, like back to the playbook conversation, when we're building playbooks, I don't just say, here's your generic template that I'm going to load into Sales Loft or Outreach. Now you need to personalize that based on the prospect. That isn't helpful. I don't know what that means. I graduated college 4 days ago. I don't know what you're talking about. So when you're doing that, I provide so many examples. I'm like, okay, here's your pre-call planning. Identify information about the company, the contact that you're reaching out to, and maybe some conversation starters, the 3 C's from Trisha's book. But then I'll go and do that. I'll say, here's all the screenshots from the pre-call research I did. So this is the account, this is the contact. Here's how you take that information from those data sources, whether it's LinkedIn, company website, Crunchbase, and include that into the preloaded template that we served up to you in Sales Loft or Outreach. And so if you show it to them enough times, like, here's the information you see, here's how you bake that into your message. Here's the information you see, here's how you bake that into the message. Have them practice it and critique it. Like, the personalization can't just be a statement. You need to personalize. The personalization is just as important, is a equally important aspect of the training for these reps.
So it's like show and tell, right? Here's how I would do it. rinse and repeat, and then as you do it more and more times, you'll just get so used to it.
Yeah, maybe there's a better way. That's the way
I
I've
think
been
that's
doing
great.
it as of now. But the tagline is you need to train on personalization. You can't just say and put the responsibility on really junior reps to personalize the messages.
Yeah, and it's like what was the message from a lot of sales leaders back in March and April was you just lead with empathy.
Yeah, yeah. What
What
does
does
that
that
mean?
mean? What does that mean? As you say, like I might have just graduated from college. I'm still trying to figure out how to log into outreach, let alone how to lead with empathy based on the problems that my prospect might be faced with. So it's really
And it's
tricky.
fake. That's fake. So I'm sorry, but the people who buy have very different profiles from the people who are doing cold outreach. So I understand the statement, right? Like, so an example of an empathy statement is like, I understand how hard this time is right now. No, you don't. You don't have, you have very, very different. We are not the same. We are not peers. Like if you're selling to, I'm just going to use an example. If you're selling to a CRO, standard profile for a CRO is what? 40 to 50 probably in terms of age demographic or whatever. Maybe like if you're going to build one of the marketing personas, like they have 1.5 kids or whatever, and they went to an Ivy League school or whatever. So we're talking about double the age, 18 more years of life experience, a bunch of more debt, personal responsibilities, kids who are now being homeschooled or whatever, or virtual learning environments or whatever. There's just different stressors on those people than you. If you were calling recent college grads, then that's a point where you could truly empathize personally with them. So I hate anything fake. I'm not a fan of, and so the empathy one hits me, hits a nerve with me, especially because like I know what you're going through right now. It's like you have no idea what what I'm going through.
Yeah, I totally agree. And back in March and April, a lot of my team was saying, Al, everyone's telling us on all the webinars we're watching that we've got to lead with empathy. And I was like, that doesn't mean anything to me. I can't imagine it means anything to you. But I actually didn't have the answer. So I just got in the trenches with them and started dialing. And we figured it out that way together, right? And I think more leaders, I'm not saying that was the right thing to do, but are just distancing themselves a bit too much, hoping things will just sort of pan out. But the quicker you find the answers for yourself, the quicker you
Why
can
do
coach your
you?
team.
Why do you think that is? So like you're a sales leader, right? And what's pulling you away from your team? Like, so why is this gap between VP of sales, CRO and SDR AE? Why is that widening? Why are executives getting pulled away from the reps who are actually getting them to their number?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is particularly a lot of SaaS companies are VC backed, and
Yeah.
being told you got to work on the business, not in the business. Right? It's a
Mhm.
classic thing you get told. I'm a founder and a sales leader, but you get told these things, right? And I resist actually. I love being in the trenches. Problem I've got is that my passion is prospecting. That's why I started this business. So I can't draw myself away from it. But I think a lot of people do feel that they've done their time, and therefore they shouldn't have to find those answers. It should just be brought to them. That's my opinion on it anyway.
Yeah, I'm really bad at that too. I don't. I'm not good at working on the business. I'm like, all I do is, I'm like, well, I just want to work with my customers and help them build a better business. And maybe sometimes I should work on our own business, but I don't
It's a
do enough.
hard balance to strike. Hard balance to strike. Cool, man. Look, you do some really, really amazing stuff out there. So let's turn it on to something different then. You know, just based on what we do here at Reach Desk, it's a lot about gifting and direct mail, and you've already mentioned that a little bit. What's the best sort of piece of mail that you've ever received, and maybe even like, do you help your customers leverage this channel as well?
Yeah, I'll answer them in that order. So the best piece of mail that I ever received was from someone who was trying to establish a partnership with us, like a referral agreement. So not necessarily a direct sales one, but we got a awesome cheese, fruit, dry meat type platter or whatever. I don't even know how they dialed in the delivery time or whatever, but we got that. My wife really liked it. So it was a big win for them. And then it came with the way that they made sure that, so that was great. Single point in time event where there was a memory tied to it, but then also they tied it with like there was tea bags in the little platter arrangement as well. And then they sent branded coffee mugs. So then it's like you have the single point in time event with a memory and then a leave behind with a constant every single time I go and reach for one of those. I'm like, oh yeah, they sent me that platter or whatever. So that was probably the best one for me because I think about it all the time.
Oh, that's so cool, and like
Yeah.
it's obviously stuck in your mind. And how about your customers then? Are you helping them use this channel as well?
Yeah, so this one, some people will probably roll their eyes because they don't have the budget to support this one. But one I did with my customers a year and a half ago was awesome. So we tied the ABM campaign with sales development outreach, but they did branded Beats headphones. So, Beats
Mm.
headphones, and it has the B on the side, right? It's like that logo is iconic. Like they branded it really well. And so they have the B, and then on the other side was the company logo, and the color scheme was aligned with the company that we were working with. So like, they were, I mean, it's a significant investment again, but they were awesome. And what we did was we front ended it with a handwritten note that said like, hey, I'm going to send you a thing of Beats headphones. They had to engage and say yes in some way, shape, or form, right? So we had to get the thumbs up with the handwritten note, but it was just an offer. There was no ask. Then we would send the Beats, and then immediately after they got the Beats, we get the delivery notification. Then we call them and ask them how they liked them, whatever, and then kickstart a prospecting conversation from there. That one was awesome, but we put a lot of work into the list build, as you would imagine, because we weren't just going to send branded Beats to anybody and everybody.
And so, how many accounts were you targeting for that one? Was it
25? Yeah,
25
25 in
accounts?
particular. Yeah,
Nice. And that was just a net new, open new doors.
exactly. Yep.
Nice. What kind of
Yeah.
results did you see from that? Do you remember?
Yeah. Well, to first meeting, we had 80%.
80%.
Yeah, to first meeting. Unfortunately, I was working with sales development, so I don't have visibility through to close. But we got to first meeting on 80%.
That's ridiculous, right? You don't
Yeah.
hear of results like that from other channels so much, right? But
Yeah, I mean, your cost per lead is up there,
yeah,
for sure. But yeah, when I think if you have, it depends on your average deal size, and you have to do the market research to know that customer, based on their profile, is going to be in the top 20% of annual spenders with you.
cool, man. That's an awesome campaign, by the way. I absolutely love it,
It was sweet.
mate. So look, we're nearly up for time here. What's the thing that you'd be telling to salespeople to stop doing right now?
Yeah, I would say three things, and they might not be in the same category as the question intends, but first and foremost, webinars. The three things people should not be doing right now. Webinars, I think you have to either do workshops or pre-record it. Workshops are truly interactive, limit the amount of people who are actually there, force people to participate, or pre-record it and get that production value through the roof. And when you serve it up to me to advertise it, I can click on it and watch it right away. So no more live webinars with 200 attendees at a set time. I think it's a little antiquated. The second thing would be virtual backgrounds. This might just be a personal thing. I don't care what your space looks like, but I would rather it, like, I don't want your head to get cut off. It's distracting. And I think just be you, be realistic about the space that you're working in. Like, just be you. Stop using virtual backgrounds. And then the other one is not asking for help. So stop not asking for help. I think people are trying to, they're scared about their jobs. There's been a lot of layoffs. Unemployment was on the rise. Now, maybe it's coming down a little bit. But so people are trying to project strength and confidence and say like, no, I got it all under control. To the point about empathy earlier, like everyone knows how much is going on. So if you're struggling with something or you're stressed, you're anxious, you're whatever, there are literally thousands of people who are going through the exact same thing inside your company or out, but just like ask people for help, ask them for ideas for how to approach things differently. Listen to podcasts if the actual live communication doesn't do it for you. You can't get over that hurdle, but don't pretend like everything's all right and keep trying to project strength. If it's not, fix the problem. So then you can move forward more confidently and not turn into just like a ball of stress of anxiety, which has been happening a lot. So don't do that.
It's so true. So stop doing webinars in general. I don't think we've done a single webinar in the past 6 months. I'm glad you said that. Or at least if you are going to do it, serve it up as pre-recorded content. Just let people watch it, right? If it's good content, let them enjoy it. Virtual backgrounds. I'm in my bedroom. You can see my bed behind me. I don't care, quite frankly. It's just, everyone's in it together, right? So just be comfortable with that. And then that third one is almost the biggest piece of gold. Sell as a team. Ask for help. Sell as a team, and get it done together. That's really cool, man. Carl, look, we're up for time, mate. I really, really appreciate you coming on and joining us today. How do people get in touch with you if they want to reach out?
Definitely. Hit me up on LinkedIn. That's probably the channel that I use most often. Kyle Smith at the Bridge Group. It's the easiest way to get in contact with me. Shoot me a connection request, direct message, whatever. Happy to chat with anybody about anything sales or sales development at any time.
It's awesome. Love what you guys are doing over there. Trish's playbook has been a real inspiration for me, particularly starting my first BDR team a while back. But thanks for everything you guys are doing. And thanks for joining me today, man. It's been a real pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks, Alex.
Cheers, dude.